Thank you so much, Dr. Lipika. This was a very insightful and detailed overview of the applications of NLP. A bunch of questions have actually come in, so I was hoping we could hop onto that.
Sure,
Right.
sure, sure.
Sure. So a couple of people have some questions regarding what you said about sentence completion. So they're as follows. Do you think NLP can help children with speech difficulties as well as people who are not familiar with English, which I think you also mentioned? And can this kind of NLP also be used to understand animals who have similar structured calls or grammar? Further, they would also like to know if NLP is being tried on the Sanskrit language as well.
Okay, so let me take the first part, which is about whether it can be used for speech therapy. I believe that's what. Yes, and it is being used. Okay, it's not just NLP, it's a mixture of speech processing technologies and NLP. So we have to understand whether the problem is in the language constructs or whether the problem is in producing understandable accent, or the words are spoken in the correct way. So it's a difficult thing, but that is tried. In fact, it is not only for children, but it's also very important. This technology as such is very important even for understanding voice of the elderly. We are designing so many applications for elderly to reach to the banks sitting at home, etc., but they cannot always type because their hands shake. They cannot, when they speak, their voices have tremor. So therefore, technology as such, it's not just NLP, it's a mixture of signal processing technologies. There are non-semantic components of language that are used in order to do these corrections, whether it is for an educative purpose or whether it's for recognition. Yes, lot of work in that area. Second part about animals, I believe, I am not an expert, but I think it's not just NLP. It's a combination of behavioral data, which is right. So, when animals, they have different cries at different times. Even for human beings, we have different intonations. We don't speak so forcefully when we are not well, and so on. So therefore, a lot of additional information which can come from other kinds of sensors also, plus the audio signals together, can be definitely used. So I would rather like to say that data science as a whole, and specifically multimodal data analytics, can make a lot of difference to even understanding the animal world. Okay. Has NLP been tried on Sanskrit language? Now, I am not an expert, but yes, so there are work in India at different places. Just the CORDS Command conference was there this January. There was a paper by IIT Delhi and ISA together, which was working on the grammar of how combined words are built in Sanskrit, and therefore how that can be used for proper machine translation. So if one understands how to break the words, the translation can become easier. So yes, lot of fundamental work in understanding the typical constructs of Sanskrit, that plus building resources that are having grammatical rules of Sanskrit, which are well documented, being utilized. It's used by the Hindi people who work in Hindi language also. Hindi or Bengali for that matter, all the Indian languages which come from Sanskrit. So it's a joint effort. It's there. Some of the efforts are purely towards looking at Sanskrit documents. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah. So thank you. That actually makes a lot of sense. And the next member from the audience asks, given that there's a lot of advancement in understanding the spoken language and as well as recognizing emotions through face recognition technologies, can AI process or learn languages by watching videos? Like, is that something that's being done, or something is that an idea that's been floating around?
So learning languages by watching, you mean just by watching the mouth movements?
Watching videos and
Videos,
processing the
but
emotions of, like,
so there are two aspects to it. Even when you are processing videos, you have the audio content, right? So that audio content automatically becomes language. And then the part is, so then it's like any other data to me for that matter. Plus there is the facial information. That's what you are saying, facial emotion. Yes. So in fact, when we talk about making a chatbot smarter, these are some of the work that are actively going on. So a chatbot, if it if it gives back the answer in typing, it's a different thing. But as I'm saying, when it is a voice chatbot, so if it has to give you back the answer, and if it just gives it in a flat tone, rather, that's obviously less interesting. It's much more interesting if it can also imbibe the correct emotion in the voice. So in fact, speech technology or voice technology has two components to it. One is the semantic or the language component, the other is what we call the non semantic components. Lot of work is also done in those parts. Even simple use of is conveys so much. Okay, we say ha, I mean, they convey so much. So to really make a chatbot uh, human like or interesting even to deal with, these have to be incorporated, and yes, they are being looked at.
I think that's a really interesting thing to think about, it in two separate components. So the next question from the audience is that even though data has proven to be a cornerstone in NLP tasks, can methods like one-shot learning be incorporated to further natural language understanding?
So, again, it depends on applications. So, yes, lot of analytical applications have to look at one-shot learning. So, where basically you are having new examples which you haven't encountered earlier. However, you may have the context and you may have the metadata. Okay, so yes, in one word, yes, you can see. First of all, another very interesting point I mentioned about noise, but language is also ever evolving. Okay, so the meanings of the word changes. There are new words which come in, and if you just stick to a vocabulary, a past vocabulary, a past set of data, you cannot do justice. But when new things are coming in, it's not coming in as a whole entirely new. So it is like something that you have seen in the past. Can you use the other context to make use of it? And if you are making use of limited amount of past data, if you are building systems to recognize new elements easily, okay, recognize new elements easily, that's what few short learnings do. So then yes, that's being tried.
Thank you. So moving on, the last question from the audience, which I think is also a very suitable way to end this discussion, is that how can everyday users play an integral role in data collection without compromising on their privacy?
I think we are already doing it. So, how many of you have noticed that, Gmail? I don't know for how long you have been using it. We have been using it, let's say, for 20 years. Now, this auto filling up of sentences is only a very recent phenomenon, right? It's about, I think, what, 2 years old at most. Okay. Now, where did it learn to complete sentences? It learned because of all the Gmails that we have in all our drives. So, look at the strategy. The strategy was to collect data. Now, what about the privacy? The aspect is that if the data is used um, in a way which is not violating privacy, then we are happy with contributing to it, right? We were happy, of course, because we had a huge facility to use. The Gmail was a huge facility that we had. And when they actually used our data for a positive purpose, that is finishing our sentences for us, which is reducing the time that takes for us to complete. So many times you are sitting in a meeting, someone sends you something and it automatically suggests that, say, thanks, I'll take a look at it and get back to you. So these are all uses of the data that we have given. Now the point is, we have to be conscious producers or of data, in the sense that when we are giving something, we should know for what purpose we are giving it. If a company is using it for purposes other than for which we have signed, then definitely it is wrong. Uh, Otherwise, and there is one more thing, it should also not be used along with the privacy components. Now, language has many issues in it, like, you may not want to give away your gender, but you give away your gender by the way you write my husband or my wife. It's automatically known, your gender comes to be known, right? So the point is, do I mind my this thing being known? If not, then I'm okay with giving the data. So I would come back to discretion is yours. Uh, However, data is needed, and therefore we do share the data where there is also something in it for me, and that's where I would be giving the data, provided, of course, there's no compromise on my privacy. But what is compromise? Compromise is not using my data and giving back to me. Compromise is using my bank account information and giving it to somebody else to use it. So, there are layers. So what usually happens is, there is a hack, there is a cyber crime person who is attacking a drive and taking the data. So these are actually much more psychological issues than pure data science issues. Okay. So there are policies, there are cyber crime prevention policies, etc. You, of course, have to read the agreements that you are signing before you give a data. You can look at the sources from which you are getting an app and then give the data. uh, but uh, it's a give and take. While I give the data, I do get the privilege of so many things, like recommendations whenever I am at some place, auto completion, auto prediction, all of these things. Yeah, I think it's a long winded answer, because there is no good or bad, there is no right or wrong. It really has to be, judged with human intelligence finally.
Thank you. I think there's a lot of buzz around data and privacy, but it's really difficult for a layperson to truly understand anything about like these things. But once again, thank you so much, Dr. Lipika, for very kindly agreeing to join us today. This has been great, and I'm sure everybody found this really interesting.
I hope so. It was my pleasure really to interact, and I do hope a lot of you will be working in future on many meaningful problems in data science.